There are moments when a marriage ends quietly, long before anyone says the word divorce. Mine ended at Gate 42 in John F. Kennedy International Airport, while my husband stood beneath a departure screen and told me that his secretary would be joining us on our honeymoon. Nathan said it as if he were reminding me to buy sunscreen. "Sienna's coming with us," he said, glancing at his phone. "There's a problem with the Halcyon proposal, and I can't lose 4 days waiting for the legal team to understand it." For a few seconds, I thought I had misheard him. We had been married for 36 hours. My ivory silk dress was still hanging in a garment bag at our apartment. The faint indentation from my wedding band felt new against my finger. Ahead of us, the flight board flashed our destination in white letters. Kahului, Maui. "Your secretary is coming on our honeymoon?" Nathan exhaled through his nose. It was the patient, superior sigh he had begun using during the last year whenever I asked a question he did not want to answer. "She is my executive coordinator, Evelyn, and she's not coming on the honeymoon. She's flying to the same place because I may need to work." "Where will she stay?" His eyes shifted toward the crowded concourse. That was when I saw her. Sienna Vale stood beside a pillar 20 feet away, wearing a cream pantsuit and holding a rose gold suitcase. She was 29, polished, and beautiful in the deliberate way of someone who never allowed a hair or expression to appear accidental. She also had a blue leather passport wallet in her hand. My blue leather passport wallet. Nathan had given me a matching pair for Christmas. Mine was stamped with a silver E, his was stamped with an N. The one in Sienna's fingers bore a silver E, though she held it partly covered by her boarding pass. "Why does she have my passport wallet?" I asked. Nathan turned too quickly. Sienna looked down too late. "You left it at the office," he said. She picked it up with the presentation files. "I didn't leave it at the office." "Then maybe the hotel sent too. Does it matter?" It mattered. Not because of the leather, but because the wallet had been in the locked drawer of my bedroom dresser. I had put it there after returning from Geneva 3 months earlier. Nathan knew where I kept the spare key. Sienna approached us with a carefully concerned smile. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I told Nathan this was inappropriate, but the Halcyon people moved the deadline." She was wearing the pearl earrings he had told me he bought for his mother. I looked at my husband. He was not embarrassed. He was irritated that I was making the moment difficult. "We'll set boundaries," he said. "Sienna will work from the business center. You and I will still have dinners, excursions, whatever you planned. You need to be flexible." Whatever I planned. I had planned all of it. I had chosen the private oceanfront villa, arranged the sunrise sail, reserved the restaurant where my parents had celebrated their 25th anniversary, and paid the $42,000 balance from my personal account. Nathan had been too busy preparing for our wedding to help, though I now understood that preparing had apparently included giving my things to another woman. The boarding announcement began. Sienna moved close to Nathan and showed him something on her phone. He rested his hand at the small of her back without thinking. The gesture lasted only a second, but it was intimate through familiarity. No hesitation. No awareness. A movement practiced often enough to become automatic. Something inside me became very still. Nathan had mistaken my silence for weakness since the day our company became successful. In the beginning, silence had been how I concentrated. Later, it became how I survived. Meetings where he interrupted me, dinners where he corrected my memories, and evenings when he told me I was too sensitive to understand the pressure he carried. But silence can also be camouflage. "All right," I said. Nathan blinked. "All right? You said the proposal is important. I don't want to damage the company." His shoulders relaxed. Sienna's smile became almost warm. "Thank you," he said. "I knew you'd be reasonable." He kissed my forehead, then took Sienna's suitcase handle from her as if it belonged there beside his own. We walked toward the boarding line. Nathan and Sienna entered the priority lane while I stopped near a coffee kiosk. "I need water," I said. "Boarding closes in 20 minutes, Nathan replied. "I know." He did not wait for me. From behind the display of bottled drinks, I watched them hand over their boarding passes. The gate agent scanned Nathan's first, then Sienna's. Nathan turned once, checking the concourse, and I lifted a bottle in acknowledgement. He waved impatiently and disappeared down the jet bridge. I waited until I could no longer see him. Then I opened the airline app and canceled my ticket. The system asked whether I was certain. I pressed yes. My next call was not to my mother or my best friend. It was to Miriam Cho, the attorney who had incorporated Hartwell Medical Systems with me 11 years earlier. She answered on the second ring. Evelyn, aren't you supposed to be flying to Hawaii? Nathan brought Sienna. There was a pause. Miriam knew enough not to offer comfort before facts. Do you believe they're having an affair? Yes. What do you need? I watched another group of passengers hurry toward the gate. Beyond the windows, the plane that was supposed to carry me into my married life waited beneath a gray New York sky. I need you to open the sealed governance file, I said. The one my father told me never to use unless Nathan forgot who built the company. Miriam's voice changed. Are you sure? Not yet. But I will be by the time they land. I ended the call and removed my wedding ring. The pale line beneath it looked like a warning. I did not leave the airport immediately. I sat in a quiet corner near an empty gate and opened the travel folder on my tablet. Nathan believed I had booked only the honeymoon. In reality, every reservation connected to Maui had passed through a holding company my father established before he died. The villa, the charter flight from Honolulu, the private car, and the resort credit were all under Ardent House LLC, a company Nathan had never bothered to learn about because he considered my family trusts boring. Nathan understood visible power, job titles, microphones, corner offices, photographs beside governors. He had never respected the invisible kind. The clauses inside agreements, the signatures beneath foundations, the patient ownership of things other people used. I canceled the car first, then the villa. The resort manager called within 3 minutes. Ms. Hart, we received a cancellation request for Haile Kealoha. Your guests are already in transit. Is there an error? No error. Please release the booking. The cancellation fee is substantial. Keep it. Would you like us to offer the guests alternate accommodations? I pictured Nathan arriving under a flower lei, expecting a staff member to guide him and Sienna into the villa I had selected for our first nights as husband and wife. They're adults, I said. They can make their own arrangements. Next, I logged into the corporate travel dashboard. Nathan's flight had been charged to the executive account, which was permitted. Sienna's first-class ticket had also been charged there, listed as transaction support. Her hotel expenses were already pre-authorized for $17,000. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found a charge that did not belong. 3 weeks earlier, Hartwell Medical Systems had paid a consulting company called North Star Alignment $86,000. I did not recognize the name. The invoice described strategic integration services for the Halcyon acquisition. Our chief financial officer, Daniel Reyes, had not mentioned outside consultants during the last board review. I searched the New York Business Registry. North Star Alignment had been formed 7 months earlier. Its registered agent shared an address with Sienna's older brother in White Plains. My hands went cold. The second payment had been $122,000. The third had been disguised as a vendor retainer. Altogether, Hartwell had transferred $348,500 to a company connected to Sienna's family. The affair was no longer the worst thing Nathan had hidden. My phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. I watched it until the call ended. He called again, then sent a message. Where are you? They're closing the door. I typed, I'm not coming. The reply appeared instantly. Don't be ridiculous. Then, we can discuss this in Maui. I looked toward the window. A ground vehicle pulled away from the plane. There is nothing to discuss. For almost a minute, no message came. Then 3 arrived together. You're embarrassing yourself. The wedding exhausted you. Go home and sleep. Do not make a decision that affects the company because you're jealous. There it was, the old method. Dismiss the observation, diagnose the emotion, and present himself as the calm adult responsible for protecting everyone from me. I wrote 1 sentence. Check the corporate card when you land. Then I called Daniel. He answered quietly. I'm at brunch with my daughters. I'm sorry to interrupt. I need you to suspend Nathan and Sienna's corporate cards, preserve all transaction records connected to North Star Alignment, and revoke their remote access to finance files. He did not ask why I was angry. Daniel had worked with me before Nathan joined the company. He knew I never gave an instruction like that without evidence. How urgent? Before their plane reaches Hawaii. Under whose authority? Mine, as controlling shareholder and chair of the audit committee. Another pause. Evelyn, Nathan reassigned the audit chair last month. I sat straighter. What? A board consent appeared in the system. It named Martin Kessler chair and moved you to product ethics. I assumed you signed it. I did not. Daniel lowered his voice further. Then we have a serious problem. He sent me the document. My electronic signature appeared at the bottom. It was an excellent imitation, down to the small upward hook I used on the final letter of my surname. But the date exposed it. The form claimed I had signed at 9:14 p.m. on May 18th. At that exact time, I had been speaking on stage at a medical ethics conference in Geneva in front of 800 people. There was video. Nathan had not merely moved money, he had forged my authorization to weaken my oversight. Suspend the cards, I told Daniel. Lock the financial system. Do not confront anyone. Send a complete copy of every record to Miriam Cho. What about the Halcyon acquisition? Freeze it. Nathan will call the board. Let him. When I left the airport, I did not go home. Nathan could access the apartment remotely through the security system, and I did not want him watching me move from room to room as if I were a problem he could manage from 5,000 miles away. I took a car to my father's old townhouse in Brooklyn Heights. The house had been empty since his death 18 months earlier. I had not sold it because I could not bear to remove the yellow legal pads from his desk or the coffee cup that still held 3 sharpened pencils. Nathan called the place an expensive shrine. That afternoon, it became my command center. Miriam arrived before sunset with 2 laptops and a locked document case. She did not hug me until after she set them down. Then she held me tightly and said, "You don't have to be strong every second." That was the first moment I cried. I cried for 7 minutes. Miriam timed nothing, said nothing, and handed me tissues until the wave passed. When I could breathe again, she opened the locked case. Inside was the governance agreement my father had insisted on writing when Nathan became chief executive officer. My father had liked Nathan once. He admired his energy and his ability to sell an idea to people who could barely understand it. But 6 months before he died, he had watched Nathan speak over me during a board dinner. Later, Dad had said, "Charm is a useful employee and a dangerous owner." The agreement preserved my 58% voting control, prohibited any dilution without my notarized consent, and gave me emergency authority to suspend an officer if credible evidence suggested fraud, coercion, or misuse of corporate assets. Nathan had called the document insulting. I had almost torn it up to prove I trusted him. My father stopped me. "Trust is not the absence of locks," he said. "It is giving someone the key and paying attention to what they open." Miriam turned to the emergency suspension page. "If we invoke this tonight," she said, "Nathan loses operational authority immediately. But once we do it, there is no quiet way back. The board must meet within 48 hours. My phone lit up with a photograph from Nathan. He and Sienna were seated side by side on the plane. 2 champagne glasses rested between them. His message read, "You have until we land to grow up." I looked at the photograph for a long time. Then I signed the suspension order. Nathan called me 14 times during the hour after his plane landed. I did not answer. The first voicemail was controlled. "Evelyn, there appears to be a problem with the corporate accounts. Call me immediately. This is affecting company business." The second carried irritation. "The resort says you canceled the villa. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Reinstate the reservation." By the 5th message, he stopped pretending Sienna was merely an employee. "Do you have any idea what you've done? She is stranded here because of you. Not we, she." Miriam and I listened in my father's study while Daniel worked from his apartment to preserve the financial servers. Every 20 minutes, he sent another discovery. North Star alignment was only one destination for the money. Payments had also gone to a luxury apartment in Tribeca. The lease was in Sienna's name, but the security deposit came from Hartwell's executive recruitment budget. A black Range Rover registered to North Star had been paid through a medical equipment transportation account. There were restaurant charges, jewelry purchases, spa visits, and 2 weekend trips to Montreal, all labeled as client development. Nathan had turned our company into a private wallet. He had been careful, but not careful enough. His greatest mistake was believing that people who trusted him would never look. At 9:40 p.m., a message arrived from an unknown number. "This is Sienna. Please stop punishing the company because Nathan loves me." I read it twice. Miriam leaned over my shoulder. "That is either breathtakingly foolish or very useful." Another message followed. "He was going to tell you after the wedding. He didn't want to humiliate you in front of your family." My grief changed shape. Until that moment, some disobedient part of me had still searched for an explanation less ugly than the truth. Maybe he had been reckless. Maybe she had manipulated him. Maybe the financial records had some technical explanation. But they had planned it. Nathan had married me knowing he intended to leave. He had accepted my father's ring, stood beneath an arch of white roses, and promised fidelity in front of everyone I loved because canceling the wedding would have been inconvenient. Why marry me at all? The answer came from Miriam. "Timing," she said. She was studying the Halcyon acquisition documents. Hartwell was preparing to buy a smaller diagnostics company for $74 million. If the acquisition closed, a financing agreement would trigger a new class of voting shares for executive leadership. Nathan had presented the deal as a way to retain talented officers. Buried in Appendix H was a conversion formula. If I remained married to the chief executive at closing, a spousal estate planning election would permit Nathan to place part of my converted shares into a joint trust. The language was dense enough to look routine. In practice, it would have given him temporary voting power over nearly half my stake. Could he take control? I asked. Not permanently, but long enough to call a board vote, issue more shares, and remove you as chair. And if I discovered the affair after closing? He would negotiate from control, you would negotiate from shock. The wedding had not been an emotional cowardice, it had been a corporate strategy. I felt sick, then furious, then strangely clear. "We call the board tomorrow," I said. "Nathan will claim you're retaliating because of adultery. Then we won't lead with adultery." Daniel joined us by secure video shortly after midnight. His face looked older than it had that morning. "I found the access logs," he said. Sienna downloaded the shareholder register, insurance policies, executive contracts, and your trust summary. Nathan authorized her credentials. "Can they still access anything?" "No, but they have copies." "Who on the board is loyal to him?" "Martin, certainly. Possibly Elise. The others will follow evidence." Hartwell's board had 7 voting members. Nathan held 1 seat. I held 1. Martin Kessler, a venture capitalist who treated ethics as a public relations expense, had supported Nathan for years. Elise Warren disliked conflict and usually voted with whoever seemed most confident. That left Daniel, retired surgeon Dr. Owen Mercer, former regulator Priya Shah, and labor representative Rosa Jimenez. If Nathan framed the meeting as a jealous wife attacking her husband, I could lose. So we needed the story to begin somewhere else. At 1:16 a.m., Nathan finally sent the message that gave us what we needed. "Restore my access by 8 a.m., or I will execute the Halcyon authorization without you. I am CO, and I will not let your emotional instability destroy this company." Miriam smiled without humor. "He just acknowledged he plans to proceed despite suspension." I replied for the first time in hours. "You are no longer authorized to act for Hartwell. Formal notice was delivered to your company email and personal counsel." His response appeared almost immediately. "You cannot remove me. I built Hartwell." I looked around my father's study. On the wall hung the first prototype my father and I had assembled in our garage. A clumsy portable blood analyzer with exposed wires and a cracked plastic casing. Nathan had joined 3 years later, after the device worked and after 2 hospitals had signed letters of intent. He had built the version of our story in which he was the hero. I typed, "The board will decide who built Hartwell tomorrow at 4 p.m. Then I turned off the phone. For the first time since the airport, I slept. At 9 the next morning, my mother called. Nathan had contacted her before breakfast. "He says you abandoned him in Hawaii," she said. "He says you're having some kind of breakdown." My mother, Margaret Hart, was 68 and gentle until someone insulted one of her children. Then her voice became so calm that entire rooms reconsidered their choices. Did he mention Sienna? I asked. He called her a member of the deal team. She is his mistress. Silence. I heard my mother set down a cup. Are you certain? She told me he loves her. He used company money to pay for her apartment and travel. He also forged my signature. My mother inhaled once. What do you need from me? Not, are you sure you want to destroy your marriage? Not, what will people say? Not, perhaps you should hear him out. What do you need? I closed my eyes. Please tell the family not to respond to him. And don't post anything. This will become legal. Done. Before hanging up, she said, your father never liked the way Nathan looked at a room after people applauded him. He said Nathan always counted who was impressed. Why didn't he tell me? He did. You were in love. There was no accusation in her voice, which made the truth hurt more. By noon, Nathan's version of events had reached 2 board members and at least 6 senior executives. I learned this because Hartwell's communications director sent Daniel a draft statement about my temporary health-related leave. Nathan was trying to remove me before the meeting. He had dictated the statement from Maui. The draft described him as continuing to lead operations during a private family matter. It described me as receiving appropriate support. I read the paragraph 3 times. The language was elegant, compassionate, and lethal. Once released, every decision I made would look like evidence of instability. Can he publish it? I asked. Not through company channels, Daniel said. We've blocked him, but Martin could pressure communications. Then we speak first, Miriam objected. Public accusations before a formal investigation could expose us to claims of defamation and market manipulation. She was right. But silence would allow Nathan to define the frame. So we did not accuse him publicly. At 1 p.m., I sent a company-wide message. Hartwell Medical Systems has initiated a routine governance review concerning executive expenditures and authorization controls. During this review, certain access privileges have been temporarily suspended. Operations remain stable, and no patient, partner, or employee services are affected. Questions should be directed to the audit committee. I signed it. Evelyn Hart, founder and controlling shareholder. Nathan called within 30 seconds. This time, I answered. The line opened on noise, wind, voices, a hotel lobby. What the hell are you doing? He demanded. Following the bylaws. You froze my cards. You canceled the villa. You locked me out of my own company. Our company. Don't play word games. I have investors calling me. Then tell them you're under an internal review. His voice dropped. This is because of Sienna. Sienna is the reason I looked. She is not the reason for what I found. For the first time, he hesitated. What did Daniel tell you? The question mattered. An innocent man would have asked what I believed I had found. Nathan wanted to know which witness had spoken. The board meeting begins at 4. I'm on an island, Evelyn. You chose to be. Behind him, I heard Sienna say something. Nathan covered the phone, but not before I caught the words, our lawyer. Put her on, I said. Absolutely not. Then listen carefully. Neither of you may delete, alter, or access any Hartwell document. Neither of you may contact employees about the review. Neither of you may represent yourselves as authorized to negotiate the Halcyon transaction. You sound insane. And you sound recorded. He went silent. Miriam, seated across from me, pointed toward the call recording consent notice she had required us to play when he answered. Nathan had ignored it because he was shouting. You wouldn't, he said. The file is already preserved. His tone changed immediately. The anger drained away and left the voice he used in front of cameras. Evie, we are both exhausted. The wedding was intense. Let's not turn a misunderstanding into something irreversible. He had not called me Evie in 2 years. Was marrying me part of the Halcyon financing plan? The hotel noise seemed to disappear. I don't know what you mean. Appendix H. He said nothing. The joint trust election, I continued. The temporary voting transfer. The shares you plan to control after closing. That structure protects both of us. Did you plan to tell me before or after you moved my shares? You're twisting a standard document because Miriam hates me. Did you forge my signature on the audit reassignment? I had verbal authorization. No, you didn't. You agreed that Martin should take a larger role. At 9:14 p.m. on May 18th? His breathing changed. I was on stage in Geneva, I said. There is video of every minute. Sienna spoke again in the background, louder now. Hang up. Nathan did. I looked at Miriam. He admitted knowledge of the document and claimed verbal authorization. She nodded. And he knows the signature cannot survive scrutiny. At 3:58 p.m., I entered Hartwell's boardroom. The long glass table reflected the gray sky over Manhattan. 4 directors were present in person. Martin Kessler sat nearest the head of the table, as if he had already decided the seat belonged to him. Nathan appeared on the wall screen from a hotel conference room in Maui. Sienna sat just beyond the camera's edge, visible only when she leaned toward him. Martin did not greet me. Before we begin, he said, I move that Evelyn recuse herself. This review is obviously contaminated by a marital dispute. Nathan folded his hands and looked solemn. He expected me to defend my marriage. Instead, I placed 3 black folders on the table. The subject of this meeting, I said, is not adultery. It is $348,500 in undisclosed payments, a forged governance document, unauthorized access to shareholder records, and an attempted transaction that would transfer voting control without informed consent. The room became completely still. Then I opened the first folder. The first folder contained the North Star payments. Daniel projected the invoices on the screen one by one. Each document looked ordinary until he placed it beside the bank records and the state registration file linking North Star alignment to Sienna's brother. These transfers were approved under the CEO's discretionary consulting authority, Martin said. There is nothing inherently improper about using a consultant connected to an employee. Correct, I replied. If the relationship is disclosed, the work is performed, and the price is reasonable. Priya Shah turned a page. Where are the work products? Daniel answered. We have found none. Nathan leaned toward his camera. Because the work was advisory, most of it happened verbally. $348,000 in verbal advice? Rosa asked. North Star gave us sensitive market intelligence. From whom? I cannot disclose confidential sources in an open meeting. Miriam, seated behind me as counsel, slid a sealed envelope toward the directors. North Star's listed manager signed a declaration this morning, she said. He states that the company performed no consulting work for Hartwell. He understood the payments to be personal compensation arranged by Mr. Cole for his sister. On the screen, Sienna moved sharply into view. My brother is confused, she said. Every face turned toward her. Martin frowned. Ms. Vale, you are not a participant in this meeting. He has anxiety, she continued. He signs things without reading them. Miriam made a note. Nathan whispered something to Sienna. She disappeared from the frame. I opened the second folder. It held the forged audit reassignment, the authentication logs, and a still image from my Geneva speech displaying the timestamp. Dr. Mercer adjusted his glasses. Nathan, did Evelyn authorize this change? Verbally. Why use her electronic signature? Administrative convenience. Whose convenience? Nathan's expression hardened. This is absurd. Evelyn and I made decisions informally all the time. She is taking normal marital communication and criminalizing it. Did you apply the signature yourself? Priya asked. My office processed the form. Who in your office? I don't remember. Everyone did. The camera caught Sienna's reflection in a framed picture behind Nathan. She stood near the window with her phone pressed to her ear. I opened the third folder. This was the Halcyon Agreement. I walked the board through the proposed joint trust election and the chain of votes Nathan could have controlled. The structure was complicated, but the intent became simple when shown as a timeline. Wedding, acquisition, transfer, emergency vote, dilution, removal of the founder. Martin shook his head. That is speculation. Then let's ask him, I said. I faced the wall screen. Nathan, did you intend to use the joint trust election to vote any portion of my shares? The election was designed by counsel. That was not my question. Your shares would have remained beneficially yours. Would you have controlled their vote? He looked down. Temporarily, for transaction efficiency. Rosa sat back in her chair. It was the first honest answer he had given, and it destroyed him. Martin spoke quickly. Temporary voting authority is common in complex acquisitions. With informed consent, Priya said. Evelyn had access to the agreement. The final appendix was uploaded after she approved the principal terms, Daniel replied. Her account never opened it. Nathan slammed his palm against the table in Maui. Enough. I took this company from 12 employees to 800. I negotiated every major hospital network. I raised the capital. I built the executive team. And now, because my wife is angry about a private relationship, you're going to pretend I'm some kind of thief? The outburst hung in the room. My wife. A private relationship? He had just admitted the affair in a board meeting while trying to argue that it was irrelevant. It was irrelevant to the financial evidence. It was devastating to his credibility. Dr. Mercer removed his glasses. How long? Nathan looked confused. What? How long have you been involved with Miss Vale? That has nothing to do with. You married Evelyn 2 days ago. Nathan's face flushed. Sienna reappeared and spoke from behind him. He married her to protect the transaction. Even Nathan turned around in disbelief. She realized what she had said. Her mouth opened, but no correction could return the words to silence. Rosa whispered, "Oh my God." I did not feel triumphant. I felt as if someone had opened a door in winter. Nathan muted the call. He and Sienna argued without sound, their movements frantic on the wall. She pointed toward the laptop. He reached for it. The screen shook. Martin asked for a recess. I refused. Under the emergency governance agreement, the board had 48 hours to affirm or reject my suspension order. Delay benefited Nathan. We would vote while the evidence was fresh and before he could replace truth with explanation. Priya made the motion. Suspend Nathan Cole as chief executive and director pending an independent investigation. Suspend Sienna Vale. Refer suspected fraud and forgery to outside counsel and law enforcement. Pause the Halcyon acquisition. Appoint Daniel Reyes interim CO. Martin voted no. Nathan attempted to vote, but Miriam stated that the governance agreement barred the subject officer from voting on his own emergency suspension. Elise Warren stared at her hands for nearly a minute. Then she voted yes. Dr. Mercer voted yes. Rosa voted yes. Daniel abstained from his own appointment but supported the investigation. The motion passed. Miriam sent the formal notice while we were still seated. On the wall, Nathan unmuted himself. "Evelyn," he said, and his voice carried a kind of disbelief. "What have you done?" I looked at the man I had loved for 8 years, married for less than 2 days, and finally seen clearly at an airport gate. I protected the company. From me? From what you became when you thought no one could stop you? He leaned closer to the screen. "If you think I'm coming home to let you humiliate me." The video disappeared. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Daniel's laptop chimed. Sienna had attempted to access Hartwell's cloud archive using a dormant administrator credential. The attempt came 3 minutes after the board ordered her to preserve all documents. "Can we trace what she tried to open?" I asked. Daniel's fingers moved across the keyboard. His expression changed. "Not what she tried to open," he said. "What she tried to delete." The archive was labeled EH Contingency. It contained 43 files. Nathan had created the folder 11 months earlier, shortly after my father's illness became terminal. Most of the documents were drafts, public statements, board resolutions, talking points, medical leave notices, and summaries of my supposed erratic conduct. The strategy was clear. If I objected to the Halcyon structure, questioned the expenses, or resisted transferring voting control, Nathan planned to declare me temporarily unfit. One memo advised directors to avoid using words such as breakdown or unstable in writing. Instead, it recommended acute grief-related impairment and protective continuity measures. Another document listed examples of behavior that could support the story. Evelyn cried after her father's memorial. Evelyn missed 2 executive dinners. Evelyn objected emotionally to staff reductions. Evelyn questioned whether aggressive growth was consistent with the company's mission. My grief had been converted into evidence. My ethics had been converted into symptoms. Nathan had not begun preparing to betray me when Sienna appeared. He had been constructing the machinery for almost a year. At the bottom of the folder was an audio file. I hesitated before playing it. Miriam suggested we preserve it without listening until the forensic team confirmed how it had been obtained. Daniel examined the metadata. The recording came from our apartment's home office system. Nathan had enabled the room's conference microphone remotely during a conversation between my mother and me. The date was 6 days after my father died. My mother and I were discussing whether I had the strength to remain chair of Hartwell. I said I felt empty. I said I could not imagine entering the boardroom without expecting my father to call afterward. I said perhaps Nathan should carry more responsibility for a few months. The recording stopped there. It excluded what I said next. Then again, Dad built the governance structure because leadership is hardest when we are hurt. I will take 2 weeks, and then I will return. Nathan had edited the file to preserve only my despair. I removed my headphones. How did I not see him? I asked. Miriam closed the laptop. Because he did not behave this way when you met him. Or because I didn't want to. Both can be true without making this your fault. I walked to the boardroom window. Far below, traffic moved along Madison Avenue, every car following lines painted by people the drivers would never know. Marriage had lines too. Privacy, loyalty, consent. Nathan treated them as suggestions because crossing them had always rewarded him. Daniel's phone rang. He listened, asked 2 questions, and ended the call. Security found Sienna's office computer powered on, he said. Someone installed remote erasure software yesterday. Can it still run? We isolated the device. The forensic team is imaging it now. At 6:30 p.m., we left the boardroom and moved into a smaller conference room. Outside counsel contacted the Manhattan District Attorney's Financial Crimes Unit. The company's insurers were notified. Halcyon received a carefully worded notice that the acquisition was paused because of a governance review. The news reached the press before dinner. An industry website posted, Hartwell CO suspended hours after wedding, acquisition in doubt. By 8, satellite trucks waited outside the building. Nathan released a statement through a personal publicist. He claimed I had weaponized corporate governance in response to a painful but private marital disagreement. He denied misusing funds and described Northstar as a legitimate consultancy. He also said he remained committed to Hartwell's employees and patients. The man had been removed 6 hours earlier, and he was still speaking as if he owned the mission. My communications director asked whether I wanted to respond. No personal statement, I said. Publish the board resolution and nothing else. People will assume his version is true, for one night. At 9:12 p.m., Sienna sent me another message. You think you won because you have your father's money. Nathan chose me before he married you. He only stayed because you trapped him with the company. An image followed. It showed Nathan asleep in a bed I recognized as ours. Sienna had taken the photograph. The date embedded in the image was the night of my father's funeral. I stared until the room blurred. Nathan had told me he needed sleep because the memorial had exhausted him. I had stayed with my mother. Sienna had entered my home, lain in my bed, and photographed him there while my father's flowers were still arriving downstairs. I placed the phone face down. There are humiliations so deep that anger cannot reach them immediately. They first arrive as numbness, as if the mind wraps the injury in cloth before allowing you to touch it. Miriam wanted to add the image to the evidence file. Do it, I said. You don't have to look at it again. I won't. At 10, the forensic team found a spreadsheet on Sienna's office computer. It listed payments, passwords, and planned transfers. In one column, she had categorized people as useful, loyal, weak, or threat. My name appeared at the top. Beside it, she had written, threat until shares move. After that, irrelevant. Below my name was Daniel's, threat. Replace after closing. Below his was my mother's, emotional leverage only. The spreadsheet transformed suspicion into design. Nathan and Sienna had not simply fallen in love and made selfish choices. They had mapped the people around them according to how easily they could be used. One scheduled payment caught Daniel's attention. $4 million was set to move from Hartwell's acquisition escrow to a Cayman Islands account 48 hours after the Halcyon closing. The beneficiary was a trust called Blue Meridian. Miriam searched the attached formation documents. Blue Meridian's beneficiaries were Nathan Cole and Sienna Vale. The wedding, the shares, the acquisition, and the secret payments were parts of one structure. Adultery had opened the door. Fraud was waiting behind it. Nathan disappeared for most of the next day. His attorney contacted Miriam and demanded that Hartwell restore his access, withdraw the public suspension notice, and reimburse all travel expenses. In return, Nathan offered to resolve private concerns amicably. Miriam read the proposal aloud. "He wants the company to pay for the trip he took with his mistress," Daniel said. "He also wants a mutual non-disparagement agreement," Miriam replied. I almost laughed. "Tell them we will discuss resolution after all devices are surrendered and all funds are accounted for." The answer came in 11 minutes. Rejected. At noon, investigators arrived with document requests. Because Hartwell developed diagnostic equipment used in federally funded hospitals, misuse of acquisition money potentially triggered federal jurisdiction. What had begun as an internal review was expanding faster than Nathan could control. I spent the afternoon in interviews. I described how I met him at a healthcare conference in Boston. I was 30, nervous before my first major presentation, and still uncomfortable calling myself a founder. Nathan was a strategy consultant who seemed to understand my vision before I finished explaining it. He told me Hartwell should not be a small laboratory company. He said our technology could change rural medicine. He was right. For years, we were extraordinary together. I designed systems. He persuaded people to believe in them. We worked on trains, in airports, at kitchen tables, and once through an entire night in a hospital cafeteria after a trial device failed. That history made the betrayal harder, not less real. Investigators asked when his behavior changed. I could not name a day. Power rarely announces itself as corruption. At first, Nathan simply enjoyed being recognized. Then he began referring to Hartwell as my company when something failed, and his company when something succeeded. He replaced people who challenged him with people who admired him. He stopped reading technical reports but spoke longer at product launches. Sienna arrived as a temporary assistant during my father's treatment. She was efficient, flattering, and always available. Nathan praised her loyalty. I was grateful to her because she protected his schedule while I spent time at the hospital. Now I understood that my absence had not created their affair. It had given them privacy. At 5:20 p.m., my phone rang from a Hawaiian number. I assumed it was another reporter and nearly ignored it. The caller left a voicemail. "Ms. Hart, my name is Leilani Akana. I manage guest services at the Wailea Crest. I apologize for contacting you directly, but Mr. Cole listed you as his emergency contact. There has been an incident," I called back. Nathan and Sienna had checked into the resort after the villa cancellation, using a personal card. That morning, the card was declined for additional charges. Hotel security later received a complaint that the couple had entered a private cabana reserved for another guest. During the dispute, Nathan allegedly identified himself as Hartwell's CO and threatened to have the guest's employer removed from every hospital contract in the country, the guest recorded him. The guest was the Deputy General Counsel of Halcyon Diagnostics. Of all the people in Maui, Nathan had threatened an attorney for the company he was trying to acquire. Leilani asked whether Hartwell would guarantee the hotel bill. "No," I said. "Mr. Cole is traveling in a personal capacity and is no longer authorized to represent Hartwell." He said you would say that. Then he received one thing correctly. An hour later, the Halcyon board formally withdrew from the acquisition. Nathan called immediately. "You destroyed the deal," he said. "You threatened their deputy counsel beside a swimming pool." He provoked me. "Did he force you to move $4 million into Blue Meridian?" Silence. Then, "I don't know what that is. Your name is on the trust." Sienna handled those documents. Across the room, Miriam raised her eyebrows. The separation had begun. When people build a lie together, loyalty lasts only while the lie protects them equally. The moment consequences arrive, each person starts rewriting the partnership so the other appears to be the author. "Are you blaming her?" I asked. "I'm saying she managed administrative details." In the background, Sienna shouted, "You signed everything!" Nathan moved away from the phone, but I heard the argument. She accused him of promising that I would never challenge the trust. He accused her brother of keeping too much of the North Star money. She said she had copies of his messages. He told her to lower her voice. I recorded every second under New York's one-party consent rule, with Miriam beside me confirming the legal basis. Then Sienna took the phone. Evelyn, he is lying to you. You both lied to me. The trust was his idea. He said after the acquisition he could make the board declare you incompetent. Send the evidence to my attorney. Nathan shouted her name. What do I get? Sienna asked. The opportunity to tell the truth before investigators recover it without your help. I need protection. I cannot offer immunity. Then why would I help you? Because Nathan just blamed you for the documents. The line went quiet. I could almost hear her recalculating. Give me an hour, she said. Nathan seized the phone. She's upset. Nothing she says is reliable. That sounds familiar. Evelyn, listen to me. We can still contain this. I will resign. You can keep Hartwell. We announce an amicable separation and move on. Return the money. There is no missing money. Then there is nothing to negotiate. His voice became soft. What happened to us? For one dangerous second, I heard the man from Boston. The one who brought coffee to my laboratory and memorized my father's favorite jazz records. Grief rose in my chest. Then I remembered the edited recording, the forged signature, and the photograph taken in my bed after the funeral. You happened to us, I said. I ended the call. 53 minutes later, Sienna sent Miriam a link. It contained more than 2,000 messages between her and Nathan. The first one was dated 16 months earlier. The final one had been sent that morning. Miriam opened the archive. Evelyn, she said quietly, you need to prepare yourself. I did not read all of them. No betrayed person needs to consume every detail to prove that pain is real. Miriam assigned a legal team to review the messages for evidence while shielding me from the intimate material that served no purpose beyond injury. Still, some messages were unavoidable. They showed that Nathan and Sienna began sleeping together while my father was in hospice care. They joked about my exhaustion. They discussed which board members could be pressured. They planned the wedding with clinical precision. Nathan wrote, If I cancel now, Evelyn will freeze me out before Halcyon. We get married, close the deal, move the voting rights, then I tell her. 6 weeks of patience buys us the rest of our lives. Sienna replied, And Maui? Nathan, come. She'll complain, then surrender. She always does. That sentence hurt more than the affair. She always does. He had built his entire plan on a version of me created by years of compromise. Every time I accepted an apology without change, every time I softened a boundary to avoid conflict, every time I let him interrupt and then praised his passion, I taught him the wrong lesson. He believed love meant surrender. At the airport, he discovered love could end. The messages also documented the financial scheme. Nathan approved the North Star transfers. Sienna coordinated the false invoices. Martin Kessler knew about the joint trust structure, though the messages did not prove he knew about the forged signature or offshore account. One exchange suggested Nathan planned to reward Martin with preferred shares after my removal. Miriam notified the board. Martin resigned before midnight. His resignation letter claimed he wanted to protect Hartwell from distraction. He did not mention the messages or the promises of shares. The next morning, federal agents executed search warrants at Sienna's apartment, North Star's registered office, and Nathan's private storage unit. News helicopters hovered above Tribeca. By lunchtime, every business network carried photographs from our wedding beside the headline, "The Honeymoon Scandal had expanded into a corporate fraud investigation." I hated the phrase honeymoon scandal. It made the story sound glamorous and foolish, a spectacle of beautiful people behaving badly. The real story involved employees whose retirement accounts depended on Hartwell, patients who trusted our devices, and a company my father had mortgaged his house to help create. So I returned to the office. The lobby fell silent when I entered. Employees pretended not to stare. Some looked worried. Others looked ashamed on my behalf, which was somehow worse. I asked the communications team to organize a company meeting. At 3, 800 employees joined, in person or online. I stood on the small auditorium stage without a teleprompter. Many of you have read stories about Hartwell and about my marriage, I began. I will not discuss evidence under investigation. But I want you to hear 3 things directly from me. The room was so quiet I could hear the air system. First, Hartwell is financially stable. We have frozen the affected transaction, preserved our operating capital, and confirmed that payroll, research, production, and patient support are secure. Second, no person's title places them above oversight. That includes the chief executive. It also includes me. Third, this company was created to make diagnosis faster for people who cannot wait. Our purpose is not the reputation of any executive. Our purpose is the patient at the end of the device. I looked toward the second row, where several engineers from my original team were seated. We will be honest about what happened. We will repair what failed. And we will not become smaller because someone confused leadership with ownership. No one applauded immediately. Then Rosa stood. Others followed. The applause was not explosive. It built slowly, person by person, until I felt it beneath my feet. For years, Nathan had been the one who knew how to command a room. I had preferred the laboratory, the design meeting, the quiet conversation after everyone else left. But leadership was not performance. It was standing where the damage occurred and refusing to hide. After the meeting, a junior analyst named Claire waited near the stage. I tried to report the North Star invoices, she said. To whom? Sienna. She told me the CEO had approved them and that questioning executive strategy could affect my promotion. I'm sorry, I stopped. You were threatened by someone with power over your job. This is not your fault. Her eyes filled with tears. I should have gone to audit, and we should have built a system that made going to audit safe. That conversation changed the next decision I made. Hartwell did not merely need new leaders. It needed new protections. Anonymous reporting outside the executive chain, rotating audit access, independent verification of related party vendors, and automatic alerts when anyone downloaded sensitive shareholder files. Nathan had exploited more than trust. He had exploited design flaws. By evening, the market had closed. Hartwell's private secondary shares had declined 12% in internal pricing. Painful, but survivable. 2 hospital networks called to affirm their contracts. 3 others requested meetings. Daniel entered my office carrying a paper bag of soup. Your mother sent this, he said. She says you forget food during emergencies. My mother believes soup is a legal requirement. She also asked me to make sure you go home before midnight. I looked around the office Nathan had occupied. His framed awards still covered one wall. A photograph showed him ringing a stock exchange bell during a healthcare innovation event. Another showed him beside me at our first factory opening, his arm around my shoulders. Remove the personal things, I said. Box them carefully. They belong to him. Daniel nodded. Keep the company history, I added. We don't erase what happened because the person disappointed us. At 7:30, Miriam called. Nathan and Sienna had booked separate flights home. Sienna's plane would land first. She had arranged through counsel to surrender her devices and meet investigators voluntarily. Nathan had made no such arrangement. Instead, he had purchased a ticket to Toronto with a connection through San Francisco. His attorney claimed the route was cheaper. The ticket had been bought with cash, and his storage unit was missing one thing the agents expected to find: his second passport. Nathan never reached San Francisco. Airline security identified him during boarding in Kahului. By then, investigators had obtained a warrant related to the forged governance document and attempted transfer of acquisition funds. 2 agents met him beyond the gate and escorted him into a private room. The arrest happened without cameras. The photographs came later, when he arrived in New York wearing the same navy jacket from the honeymoon flight, his wrists hidden beneath a coat held in front of him. Reporters shouted questions about Hartwell, Sienna, and the offshore trust. No one asked whether he had enjoyed Maui. I watched less than 30 seconds of the footage before turning off the television. My mother sat beside me in my father's townhouse. She had brought groceries, clean sheets, and the quiet authority of someone who had decided I should not spend another night alone. Do you feel better? She asked. No. Good. I looked at her. If seeing him arrested made you happy, I would worry, she said. Justice is necessary. It is not supposed to become entertainment. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Nathan spent one night in custody before a judge released him on a secured bond. He surrendered both passports and agreed to electronic monitoring. His attorney called the charges an overreaction fueled by a sensational marital conflict. Outside the courthouse, Nathan read a statement. I dedicated 11 years of my life to Hartwell Medical Systems. I made mistakes in my marriage, but I did not steal from the company I helped build. I look forward to clearing my name. He still spoke in the language of devotion. He did not mention the false invoices. He did not mention my signature. He did not mention Blue Meridian. That afternoon, a courier delivered a handwritten letter to the townhouse. Evie, I know you believe the worst of me. I understand why. I should have told you about Sienna, and I should never have allowed personal decisions to become entangled with company matters. But what Miriam and Daniel are doing goes beyond accountability. They are using this crisis to take control of everything we built. You know me better than the people advising you. You know I would never intentionally harm Hartwell. Meet me once, privately, without lawyers. If there is any part of you that remembers Boston, the garage, the nights we believed we could change medicine, give that part 1 hour. Nathan. I read the letter twice. The manipulation was softer now, shaped like memory. He separated himself from the decisions as if they had drifted into the company without his hands. He described the investigation as something Miriam and Daniel were doing to us. He asked the woman I used to be to rescue the man he used to pretend to be. For 1 hour, I considered meeting him. Not because I wanted reconciliation. I wanted an explanation that could make the past coherent. I wanted him to sit across from me and admit when admiration became entitlement, when ambition became theft, and when our marriage became a transaction. Miriam did not forbid the meeting. If you go, she said, we arrange it through counsel in a monitored setting. Would it damage the case? Potentially. He may later characterize anything you say as pressure, negotiation, or acknowledgement. Then I won't go. That was the legal reason. The personal reason came later. Nathan had possessed thousands of opportunities to tell me the truth when truth cost less. He could have spoken before the affair, before the forged signature, before the wedding, before the plane left New York, or before the board vote. He wanted honesty only after deception failed. I placed the letter in the evidence box. The divorce petition was filed the next morning. Because our marriage had lasted only 48 hours before separation, gossip sites called it the shortest corporate marriage in New York. They competed to calculate the price of the wedding per hour. Photographs of the flowers, cake, and string quartet circulated beside advertisements for jewelry. None of them understood that the marriage had lasted years in my mind. The ceremony was only the final room in a house we had been building and damaging for a long time. Nathan contested the annulment. He claimed we entered the marriage in good faith and that our later conflict did not erase his intentions at the altar. Then prosecutors introduced his message to Sienna. We get married, close the deal, move the voting rights, then I tell her. His attorney withdrew the objection. Sienna accepted a cooperation agreement. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy, falsifying business records, and unauthorized computer access. In exchange for truthful testimony and restitution, prosecutors recommended a reduced sentence. Her statement described Nathan as the architect. Nathan's statement described Sienna as the manipulator. The evidence described them as partners. Martin Kessler was charged months later with failing to disclose the promised shares and assisting the governance scheme. He was not accused of knowing about the affair, which seemed almost absurd. In the end, adultery was the only secret Nathan had kept from him. North Star returned part of the money. Insurance covered another portion. The Blue Meridian transfer had never been completed because I froze the acquisition before closing. The financial damage was serious, but far less than the damage they planned. Hartwell survived. Survival, however, was not the same as recovery. Employees were tired. Partners were cautious. Every executive expense became the subject of suspicion. People who once moved quickly now copied 3 attorneys on routine decisions. I could not demand trust. I had to rebuild conditions where trust could grow. We appointed an independent chair to the audit committee. We added 2 outside directors with no financial relationship to my family. I gave up my emergency authority once the investigation ended and replaced it with a system requiring 2 independent officers and outside counsel to act together. Some advisors told me not to surrender power while the company was vulnerable. But the lesson of Nathan was not that the right person should hold unlimited authority. The lesson was that no person should. 6 months after the airport, Hartwell released a redesigned portable analyzer for rural clinics. My father had begun the prototype during his last year of work. At the launch, the communications team prepared a dramatic speech about resilience. I discarded it. Instead, I held up the cracked prototype from his study. This machine failed 19 times, I told the audience. Each failure revealed something the design had hidden from us. Organizations are not so different. A failure can become fatal when people conceal it. When we expose it, study it, and change the design, failure becomes instruction. No one needed me to mention Nathan. His name was already inside the lesson. The annulment became final 11 months after our wedding. By then, the criminal case had ended. Nathan pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, falsifying corporate records, and attempted misappropriation of acquisition funds. He avoided a trial that would have placed every message and photograph into the public record. The judge sentenced him to prison, restitution, and a permanent prohibition from serving as an officer of a public healthcare company. At sentencing, he spoke for 12 minutes. He apologized to Hartwell's employees, investors, and partners. He apologized to my mother for causing pain. He apologized to Sienna's family for involving them. He mentioned me last. Evelyn and I created something remarkable together, he said. I regret that my choices destroyed our partnership and our marriage. It was the closest he came to taking responsibility. He still described the damage as something his choices had done, not something he had chosen to do. I did not attend. Miriam sent me the transcript, but I read only the final page. That morning, I was in Maui. I had returned alone. For months, the island existed in my mind only as a backdrop to humiliation. The canceled villa, the hotel argument, the phone calls filled with blame. I knew that if I never went, Nathan would own a place he had barely seen. So I rebooked Haleki Aloha for 1 week. The manager remembered my name but asked no questions. When I arrived, the staff placed a small arrangement of white orchids on the table. There were no rose petals, no champagne, and no card addressed to newlyweds. The villa opened toward the ocean. That first evening, I sat on the terrace and watched the sun lower through bands of gold and violet. The beauty made me angry. It seemed unfair that the world could remain so magnificent while a life broke apart. Then the anger passed. The ocean had not promised to mourn with me. The next morning, I joined the sunrise sail I had originally planned for Nathan and myself. 4 couples and a family with 2 children shared the boat. When the captain asked whether I was celebrating something, I said, "A return." He nodded as if that were enough. Miles from shore, a group of spinner dolphins moved beside us. Their bodies entered and left the water with effortless precision. One of the children screamed with joy every time a fin appeared. I laughed. The sound surprised me. For nearly a year, I had treated healing as another corporate project. Identify damage, assign responsibility, build controls, verify progress. But grief did not follow a governance plan. It arrived at strange times. A scent in an elevator, a jazz song my father loved, the sight of a blue passport wallet in a shop window. Healing arrived strangely too. It came in soup delivered by my mother, in an analyst brave enough to admit she had been afraid, in employees standing one by one, in a child laughing at dolphins. On my 4th day in Maui, I drove the road to Hana. Rain moved through the trees in silver curtains, stopping and beginning without warning. At a roadside stand, an elderly woman sold banana bread wrapped in paper. She noticed the pale mark where my wedding ring had been. "Newly free?" she asked. I smiled. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because you keep looking at your hand." I bought a loaf and sat beneath an awning while the rain strengthened. "Does the mark go away?" I asked. The woman glanced at my finger. "The skin mark?" "Yes. The other one becomes part of your map." I thought about that sentence for the rest of the drive. We are often told to move on, as if healing means returning to the person we were before the injury. I did not want to become that woman again. She was intelligent and loving, but she had confused patience with loyalty and silence with peace. She believed recognizing the best in someone could protect her from the worst. I wanted to keep her tenderness without inheriting her blindness. On the final night, I opened my laptop and found the original honeymoon itinerary. The file contained every reservation, confirmation number, and private note I had written while planning the trip. Tuesday. Sunrise sail. Nathan hates waking early, but he will love it once we are there. Wednesday. Dinner at Mama and Dad's anniversary restaurant. Tell him the story about Dad dropping the ring. Thursday. No plans. Just us. The notes belonged to a future that never existed. I did not delete the file. I renamed it. Maui. The trip I chose myself. Then I opened a blank page and wrote a letter to my father. Dad, you were right about the locks, but I think you were also right to give people keys. The answer is not to trust no one. The answer is to remain present in your own life while you trust them. I almost lost the company. I lost the marriage. I lost the story I told myself about Nathan and about who we were together. But I did not lose everything. I found the part of me that can leave the gate. I saved the letter and stepped outside. The beach was empty except for a man stacking chairs near the neighboring property. Waves moved across the sand and erased the day's footprints one line at a time. I walked to the water. For years, Nathan had told our origin story at conferences. In his version, he discovered a shy scientist with a brilliant device and taught her how to build a company. Audiences loved it because it gave him the role of the visionary and me the role of hidden talent waiting to be recognized. The truth was less convenient. I had already built the first device. My father and I had already mortgaged the house. Hospitals had already agreed to test it. Nathan did not create my ambition. He joined it. He contributed, expanded, persuaded, and for a time loved what we were building. That part was real. But no contribution gave him ownership of my mind, my work, or my future. The waves reached my ankles. I thought about Gate 42 and the woman I had been while standing beside the coffee kiosk. She did not know about North Star, Blue Meridian, the contingency file, or the thousands of messages. She had only a passport wallet, a pair of pearl earrings, and a hand placed too comfortably on another woman's back. It was enough. We are trained to wait for complete evidence before honoring our instincts. Sometimes that is wise. Sometimes waiting is how we grant another person time to erase the evidence. I did not accuse Nathan at the gate. I did not scream, throw a drink, or beg him to choose me. I simply refused to board the future he had arranged. That choice did not make me fearless. It made the next choice possible, then the next. Cancel the ticket. Call the lawyer, freeze the accounts, open the file, enter the boardroom, tell the truth, leave the marriage, return to the island. By the time darkness settled over the water, the pale ring mark on my finger was almost invisible. I went back to the villa and packed for New York. The next morning, a driver met me at the entrance. As we approached the airport, my phone displayed an email from Hartwell's clinical director. A pilot program in 12 rural hospitals had reduced diagnostic waiting time by 41%. Hundreds of patients had received treatment earlier because of the device my father and I once built in a garage. I read the email twice, then looked out at the mountains. Nathan had believed Hartwell existed to prove his importance. I finally understood why it had survived him. The company had never been about either of us. At the airport, I walked past the counter where honeymoon couples waited with flower leis around their necks. For a moment, I felt the echo of the life I had imagined. Then the gate agent scanned my boarding pass. "Traveling alone?" she asked. "Today," I said. It was not a confession. It was not a tragedy. It was simply true. I boarded the plane, took the window seat, and watched Maui disappear beneath the clouds. This time, no one had chosen the destination for me. And when the plane turned east toward home, I did not look back.